Hey everyone, Tim here from SnapAttack. Let's dig into this week's Threat Snapshot. So today we're going to be talking more about potatoes, and you can do more than just boil them, mash them, and stick them in a stew. You can also use them for privilege escalation on Windows. I know we've talked about potatoes in some of our other threat snapshots, but there's really just so many of them that we wanted to do another deeper dive. If you wanted to see more of those previous threat snapshots, check out the one on LocalPotato, which we talked about when that CVE came out, as well as PetitPotam. So wanted to go through a little bit of the history of potatoes. I don't have enough time to really dive in, but generally speaking, if you remember the kids game Hot Potato, it's like keep away and you're passing the ball back and forth and you're trying to keep that away from everybody else. And that passing motion is really what this Hot Potato exploit was named from, is that we're passing or relaying credentials or credential material that could be like an impersonation token. And we're able to go from either a user or service account on Windows, generally up to system, which gives us all the permissions on the system. So very useful as part of an attack kill chain. If you think about privilege escalation that's going to be needed in order to do credential dumping, sometimes that helps to enable lateral movement or other attacks. Sometimes you want to persist in a more elevated state in case there are patches or other things applied and you would lose that elevated permission. So definitely very valuable here. If you want to learn more about potatoes in particular, again, there's so many of them, I don't have time to cover. A couple of good resources here. So Hide and Sec covers all of the different potatoes going back to the OG Hot Potato. This is another blog here that covers a lot of the different potato types. And then the Hacker Tricks or Hack Tricks book has a lot of potatoes. Some of the exploits that we're going to talk through today, including JuicyPotato here, as you can see here, will not work on a little bit more modern operating systems. So if we're talking Windows 11, if we're talking a more recently patched version of Windows 10, Server 29, server above that, these have been more or less patched by Windows. That was a little bit controversial because originally these were kind of evergreen, won't fix vulnerabilities, but just because of the prevalence and severity, a lot of these have come. So generally speaking, patch your systems. That's always a good call. But let's talk through some of these potato exploits. Probably one of the earlier ones that we want to talk about is RottenPotato. So again, you can see here from the age this one has been around. This is the NG version. So again, there were some modifications that were made to, again, make these a little bit easier. This is still based on that original Hot Potato exploit. Again, it's good for local privilege escalation. And, if we're going to take a look at this captured threat in here, we can see we've got, our shell. We're going to basically just run RottenPotato. It's going to go through, it's going to pass around the tokens. You're going to see the DCOM and RPC commands being sent. And then we are going to get that system shell. So we can see we have escalated to NT authority system. You'll see this pattern applies through most of these potato exploits. They do look interesting on the process graphs, and they all generally look the same. So, we launched that CMD, we have RottenPotato. In this case, it's running as a high integrity context, and then we have that system shell that is spawned here. And again, we ran who am I just to verify that we had that system level privileges. So that parent-child relationship where you're going from some lower integrity level to system integrity level is always interesting to look at and audit, especially for threat hunting. There are also some other detections for these potato exploits, which we'll talk through in a sec. So we have RottenPotato that we covered, JuicyPotatoNG, again, yet another privilege escalation. Another variant here, you can read a little bit more about this. Again, it's going to have a very similar look and feel. If we come back to this threat, I'll back this up a little bit. So here we are, we ran who am I, and we were the SnapAttack user. And we are going to run JuicyPotato, spawn a CMD, and then we're going to see we have that, again, NT authority system shell here. So again, does everything that is advertised. If we look at that again on the process graph, very similar where we have this, integrity level high shell, spawning CMD as system, so works as advertised here. Another one, SweetPotato. This is interesting because it is collection of multiple exploits. You're going to see a couple here. So they've got some different modes for DCOM, WinRM, EFS RPC, which is the PetitPotam, and then a print spoofer, which is the default mechanism, which is what we're going to use in our captured threat here. So we do have a SweetPotato example here. We can go ahead, we can run that. Again, it's going to look very similar to all of these, where we can just run SweetPotato. Again, there are some options if you want to have a different mode, because there is a bundle here. This is going to do some named pipes, which you're going to see, which is how it's going to communicate. And then we have that NTFS or NT Authority System shell. So again, another privilege escalation. Again, very similar looking, high integrity level to a system shell here. We'll cover one more for sake of time, EFS Potato. So this was based off of PetitPotam. If you want to go back, that was CVE 2021-36924. This threat capture is from our partner Mandiant and the Mandiant Security Validation product. Again, that allows you to run automated attacks in your infrastructure to audit your controls and defenses. And this is a little bit newer of an exploit. It does work on a wider range of systems. You can again see here what that's going to look like. Again, very similar to all of those where, we run the shell and now we have NT Authority systems. So yet another one works as advertised. And again, there's some detection opportunities here. So generally speaking, how do I detect these potato exploits? How do I keep myself protected from them? Couple of things. You can always look for the very specific, potatoes that you want to detect. I'll just go through a couple of these really quickly. So going back to RottenPotato, because this was compromised through an NTLM relay attack, you can look for some of these interesting characteristics. So this is looking at Windows Event ID 4624. You can see the authentication package is NTLM. It is relaying from localhost, so that's going to be interesting for the 127001. And again, that's that anonymous login that's being relayed that is interesting here. So this is a good detection opportunity for RottenPotato should you have some of those older versions of Windows floating around in your infrastructure. Otherwise, that is an older exploit, so definitely patch your systems. EFS Potato and some of those other, variants, again, there's different things that you can do to detect. This one, interestingly, is looking at the named pipes that this uses to communicate, the inter-process communication. So this is effective. You can see that working for both the original EFS Potato version as well as a SweetPotato version that we have run here using that that variant of that EFS Potato exploit. So another definitely detection opportunity you can have. Last one we'll talk about is, again, suspicious elevated system shell. On most of those parent-child relationship graphs, I talked to you about how you have a lower privileged shell being launched or launching a higher privileged shell moving to system. So you can use a detection like this, again with some tweaking or tuning to look for instances where, hey, there's a CMD or PowerShell or something else that is being spawned as system from a lower level process. That in general is a good opportunity to look for privilege escalation. I know there's a lot more potatoes out there. Maybe we'll cover them in another threat snapshot. For all of those, they'll be out at Hacker Summer Camp this year. Safe travels, and I'll see you out there. This is a weekly series, so comment, like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.